And welcome back to the Financially Simple Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Goodbread. Today I'm joined by my dear friend and colleague, Mr. David Kent, MBA. How are you, sir?
I'm doing super. How about you?
Buddy, I am blessed beyond measure. East Tennessee is beautiful this time of the year, isn't it?
It is very nice. It's a beautiful time of the year, but the pollen is definitely falling down.
So if you hear David and I coughing and hacking, I promise it's not COVID-19. We live in between two valleys here in East Tennessee. We have the Cumberland Mountains on the west side of Knoxville, East Tennessee, and the Appalachian Mountains on the east side of the valley. And man, whenever this time comes, the pollen just kind of just sits on top of Knoxville, and it wears us out, don't it, brother?
Oh man, it does for sure. But it's a beautiful time of the year all the same. So
it is a very good time of the year. So today we're dealing with a SWOT analysis. And if you remember right, if you've been listening to mine and David's dialogue, I know we have several different people playing and kind of talking with you as business owners. David and I are talking about relaunching businesses and actually how to make the exodus out of this COVID-19 position so much more better than when we entered into it. I've had this whole statement the whole time saying, I will bet on the entrepreneur every day of the week, more so than any government politics or anybody else, that I will bet on the entrepreneur. And right now, the entrepreneur has an amazing opportunity to set direction. We talked about that, but now we arrive at the SWOT analysis. And so, David, as we go through this, we're going to share a PowerPoint for those of you who've never watched us on YouTube. You can see mine and David's beautiful faces here on camera. And we have a PowerPoint here today to kind of help you follow through the SWOT analysis. Now, first and foremost, as we go through this PowerPoint, there are some disclosures that we have to put out. Now, on the podcast, you're going to hear those that are required by the regulators. For those of you who are watching us on YouTube, you got to be aware that this is just educational purpose only, like we talk about all the time. I'm going to tell you to reach out to your advisors, whoever they may be, and get specific instructions. But that being said, David, let's dive straight into what is a SWOT analysis.
So basically, you have four different areas that you evaluate your company. One is your strengths, and these are internal qualities, so strengths and your weaknesses. And then your opportunities are external factors like opportunities within a market and threats against competitors, for instance. So we're going to go through each one of those and kind of talk about the breakdown, but those are the four quadrants that we're going to discuss.
Now, as we're starting to do an analysis on this, how am I to approach this analysis? In other words, am I to look at this as me, the owner? Am I to try to put my employees' lenses on, look through their glasses, so to speak? Am I to look at this as the customers or the clientele? Am I supposed to look at this as maybe my competition, as a regulator? How do I approach this particular prism of the SWOT analysis?
Well, the answer to that is yes. You want to use all of those lenses. You want to take into consideration from the company perspective. You want to get your employee input and do this as a team. It would be good to have external advisors take a look at this from their lens and evaluate the company from the way that they see things. I doubt seriously you're going to get a competitor to give you a fair assessment, but you know what? It's good to try to look at things through their lens as well, because in the end, you want the greatest amount of diversity and thought as you go through the SWOT analysis.
So one of my favorite movies, and one of our family's favorite movies, is National Treasure. It's an older movie, relatively speaking. Nicolas Cage is in that movie, and he's trying to find this hidden treasure. He goes all over the place. He ends up ultimately finding a treasure there buried underneath the city. And inside this movie, he finds Benjamin Franklin's glasses or spectacles. And he has these crazy lenses that one would flop down and make something else appear on the back of the Declaration of Independence. Another one come down and show something else. So as we go through this, friends, I want you to think about that little picture in your head, that we want to look at each one of these four quadrants with various lenses. Let's think about that little picture, National Treasure. Now, look, if you've never seen the movie, I don't know if you could call yourself an American if you've never seen the movie. Personal opinion, feel free to make it yours. It's a great movie. I think you should go out and watch it this weekend. If you've never seen it, grab a meat lover's pizza, thin crust, mind you, a little bit of pepperoni, a little bit of sauce, there's some olives, maybe some onions, no pineapple.
No pineapple.
No pineapple. See, David and I, we're like this. We got this. No pineapple.
No pineapple. No pineapple.
All right, let's jump into this strengths. What's a strength, brother?
So basically, you want to evaluate how you are doing within your market. Are you a market leader in service? Are you a market leader in product? You want to find some way that gives you a competitive differential in your advantage. So basically, How do you measure up? If this is an area where, let's say you're a product leader within your region, then that would be a strength. Your knowledge within a particular area is a major strength. Whatever makes you a little bit better than maybe a competition, or maybe you look at it from the client's eyes and you say, you know what, we provide a better, higher level of service to our customers than maybe someone else does. That's a strength, something that allows you to be able to bring something to the table more than someone else does that competes against you.
So if I'm dissecting strength, David, here's the way my mind works.
Yep.
Is you can go on price or service. You've got the paradigm there, price or service, or maybe intellectual capacity or R&D. Apple competes on R&D more so than price or service. So you have price and service, R&D. That's called the Ansoff matrix if you really want to get into the details of that. But your strengths could be a process. It could be a patent. It could be a particular, the team, longevity of a team. It could be the youth or the age of a team, depending on what industry you're in. It could be new to the market, having the speed of which to attack the marketplace.
It could be technology that you use that's superior to what someone else has.
So whenever we look at strengths, it's really not boiled down to one particular aspect. You're looking at the entire organization. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. I mean, you want to look at the entire organization in all different areas and really kind of get a 360 view of the organization and all the components that fall within that.
So now, ultimately, are we talking about sitting down with a legal pad and writing out 400 strengths? Are we trying to identify 1, 2, or 3? Are we trying to find, what's the purpose of identifying strengths? Is there a number? Is there a size? Is there a priority?
I mean, there's no hard and fast rule, but I would say if you could nail it down to 10 per quadrant and you take your highest 10 strengths, I think that's going to help you kind of get to where you need to be. So I think that's a good way to start it anyway.
So 10, okay. So, I've heard people say 3, I've heard people say 5, I've heard people say 10, I've heard people say 25. I think it all depends on the type of business. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. I mean, obviously the more complex your business is, the more in-depth analysis that you're going to have to make. But, I like to go with the number 10. I think it's a good number. I think it gives you, I think 3 is a little limited in my opinion. I think you need to look a little bit beyond that. You do want to kind of hone it down a little bit so you don't get too far reaching. So I'm going to go with 10.
Okay. All right. So once we have our strengths, then we're going to flip over to opportunities. Why do we do strengths before we look at opportunities, David?
Well, you got to know your strengths before you can really say, you know what, these are the things I do well, but you know what, there is a lot of opportunity in some of these other areas that are strengths, but maybe we're not as strong as we should be. Maybe these are areas that we can grow the value of our organization through improving our processes, improving our technology, improving many different areas. We're doing great, but how much better could we be? That's the opportunity.
If we're dissecting the small businesses, as you and I often deal with, and we say small businesses have typically revenue less than 10 million annual per year, so to speak, in a business. And if we're looking at a litany of small businesses, what's some very common opportunity that you and I might see business owners maybe glazing over, overlooking, maybe identify but never capitalize on? Give me a couple of opportunities you often see.
Number one asset is talent, the talent within your organization. That's the greatest opportunity of any business. If you can bring talented people to your organization, that will help drive your organization to grow and become a much better organization in the long run. I think technology is obviously, it's expensive. It's hard to want to try to do something like that, but that is a major differentiator and a great opportunity. And it's hard to, you invest a lot in technology and the next thing you know, it's outdated. You got to stay current. You got to continue to invest in people and your technology. And then I think the biggest thing for me is process. I'm a process-oriented person. I've always been in operations. That's where the true value comes from within any organization. And that's where I think the greatest opportunity is found.
So we're looking at the business. We first put our lens on is what are we strong at? The strengths of the business.
Exactly.
And so now we're looking and saying, okay, we're strong in these areas. What other areas can we take our strengths and pile on? I was watching football. I love watching football, especially when my Georgia Bulldogs beat the Tennessee Volunteers. It makes me so happy, David. I got to tell
Absolutely.
you,
I know it does. I know
it
that
makes me
makes me
happy.
very, it makes
It
me
makes me
very unhappy.
So for those of you who don't know, I'm a Bulldog. David loves the Volunteers here. So does everybody else in our organization. So, I'm outnumbered here. But one of the things I love the Bulldogs did here in one of the recent past years is they had an unbelievable running back, and they just kept handing it to their strength. And that strength opened up opportunities for that team to advance the ball better against the defense. The same analogy is used here in opportunities. We're trying to find penetration into the weaknesses of either the marketplace, a competition, whatever it may be. Am I thinking of that right in my simple analogy?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great analogy, and that's exactly right. I mean, you want to look within yourself, say, what do I do well? And then what are some things that I can do to become better? And that's your opportunities. But that's why you have to look at your strengths first.
So after we look at opportunities, one of the hardest things for me to deal with, David, is identifying weaknesses. First of all, I don't like to think I am weak in any area. That's just not who I am, right? I'm the guy who will charge hell with a water pistol. That's who I am. So for me to look at my business, as so many business owners deal with, we're not weak. We're good at all things. Now,
Right,
is
right.
that the case?
Well, obviously it's not. And I mean, unfortunately, weaknesses are actually the thing that are most easily identified. I mean, if you get a customer complaint, if you get something that is not positive about your organization, you may be heading in the wrong direction in sales. What I frequently find and what I do when I'm working with businesses are operational processes. They have cumbersome, outdated processes, things that are repeated many, many times over that hurts the efficiency of the operation. Those are actually internal weaknesses, and that's what actually stands in the way of the company be able to seize those opportunities like they should.
So you've heard me say this before on the podcast, friends, that I want to make businesses to where we can hire a 16-year-old and let them cook French fries without burning the restaurant down, like so many fast food restaurants have done. That's what I look at in operations. But operational efficiencies is often a very strong one. But what are some other weaknesses, David, that you and I might see in businesses outside of the operational efficiency issues?
Well, I mean, many of our small businesses use third-party marketing companies, but and that is really something that we encourage small businesses to do, quite honestly. Small businesses that try to do their own marketing some are successful, but most aren't. And so marketing is one of those areas is where that could be really improved quickly if they involve a third party, a good third party, I might add.
So there's so many areas that we can look at weaknesses, but once we identify those, maybe say 10 weaknesses, again, like we did our 10 strengths, then we get over to our threats. So we have to look at our weaknesses first before we start looking at the threats of our business, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that right now we are obviously all feeling the effects of a great threat. Pandemic is something that has affected all of us in many different ways. And it's hard to prepare for those things, but environmental effects and economic effects, those went hand in hand, it seems like. And then, there are things with the world changing as fast as it is, and the speed of invention, technology, as I mentioned, it can be a strength, but it can also be a great threat. Because remember, everybody else, all of your competition are doing hopefully the same things, and you're going to make each other better, but they're trying to one-up you as you're trying to one-up them.
So David, I got to tell you a funny story, man. The other day I was on the phone with a young whippersnapper. And I often consider myself a young whippersnapper. And this young whippersnapper was talking very fast. And I'm usually pretty quick. You know this about me.
You are.
I had a senior moment the other day. I got to tell you, buddy, it was interesting. I'm going somewhere with this. I was listening to this kid who didn't do anything wrong. And he just knew his stuff, and he's zip, 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 just going really fast. And I finally had to say, okay, buddy, stop. You're going too fast for me. And then I stopped and I went, oh my goodness. As I get older, I'm watching this world of business around me change. And it seems to be that the older I get, the faster it changes around me.
Absolutely.
David, how in the world can we business owners combat the threat of our age, the us growing older with this crazy technology world coming about so fast?
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, obviously technology changes fast. You want to try to stay up with technology as much as you can. Don't be afraid of technology. I think we've all learned that, most things can be fixed when it comes to technology. The other thing is to read and stay informed and remain active and stay engaged with business and what's going on in business. But, I think one of the things that people think about with age is that, well, I'm slower, I'm not whatever. Well, you also have all of that experience. And a lot of the things that we just have talked about come from experience, life's experience. So business does change and things do change, but how you react to it a lot of times comes from your experience and what's happened. So yeah, you got to change, but you also need to draw from the experiences that you've had.
So as we recap this, we talked about strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And we looked at a quadrant here with the idea being that we want to look through our eyes as the business owner and write 10 points down for each of those if we can. We want to look at our eyes maybe as we get feedback. We're going to get feedback from our team, look through their eyes, if I can speak correctly, and try to write that down. We want to talk to our consultants and get through their eyes. We ultimately trying to figure out, for our business sake, what our competition is doing, though they may not, as you pointed out, give that to us.
Yep.
At the end of the day, what do we do with all this information?
Well, I mean, obviously we got a lot of external influences that are coming at us from all different angles. Who you surround yourself with, the advisors you have, who you listen to, what kind of media sources you use, how much you read. Whatever you put into your mind and is what is going to come out through your business. So, I would just be very selective of the people that you surround yourself with and the information that you listen to and gain.
So as we wrap this particular episode up, friends, what I'd like for you to do is if you're on YouTube, you're going to see this URL on your screen. We want you to apply some knowledge. We'd like for you to go to financiallysimple.com/SWOT, S-W-O-T, financiallysimple.com/SWOT, and download our SWOT template and guide. So there we actually spent some time. David, you and I did this, man, it's been almost a year and a half ago now, it seems like,
Yep.
that we spent some time building a template as part of our comprehensive strategic planning course that you and I candidly work with many, many, many dozens of businesses on yearly. And in that, there's a fundamental piece talking about the SWOT analysis. So go to financiallysimple.com/SWOT and download the guide. And for those of you who are checking us out on YouTube, I'd like for you to go ahead and leave us a comment below. For those of you who are on the podcast or wherever, hey, leave us a review. If this information is helping you, leave us a review. It's one of the best ways you can help others hear about this very simple, very basic information. You say, well, guys, man, I need some help. Reach out to us, I should say, through financiallysimple.com. David and I and a lot of other business advisors in the organization are helping business owners daily rock it out. Right now, with what we're dealing with in the COVID situation, the SWOT analysis, as ultra simple as it is, has a profound impact during complex times. Simplicity during complex times is profound. So that's what we're working with. So David, as we sign off on today's particular podcast, what's one challenge to a business owner in terms of SWOT analysis that you would leave them with?
Well, again, be selective, but have diverse thought that is put into this, and take the organized approach. I'm telling you, the simpler you make it, the easier it is to hone in on what you really need to spend your time concentrating on, because there are a lot of external interruptions. You need to stay focused.
Well, friends, that's it for this week's episode of with David and I going through the business. Next week, I'm not sure exactly what we're going to hit on. We have a couple of topics that we're bouncing around, but stay tuned for David Kent. In the meantime, you may want to check out one of our other colleagues who are talking with success stories or the market update or basic financial planning. And then my Q&A answers, we're trying to bring you a plethora. There's the word, plethora of various feedbacks, various insights from a group of entrepreneurs, a group of business advisors who know how to rock it out. This is what we do day in, day out. So good, look, guys, I realize that life is hard. It is, but life is good. It was amazing. We have an opportunity to perform a SWOT analysis. I mean, I know you got out of bed this morning thinking about that. Yes, I can do a SWOT analysis. Giddy up. Let's go. Life is frustrating sometimes, but money doesn't have to be. We're going to continue to make our lives at least financially simple. Hey, y'all go out and make it a great day.